and we cannot increase or decrease them by our efforts. Well, then you might say, well, what about work? Don't we have to work to eat? Well, let me ask you this. Look at the birds in the trees. Do they work at a job? Do they earn money? And yet, do they eat? Yes. How? God provides for them. And if He doesn't provide, then that's all right too. Because death does not really affect the soul. We're all going to die. No matter how hard we work, no matter how much we perfect this material body, at some point we're going to have to leave it. That's the influence of time. Given that is so, then why would we put so much effort into material perfection when, even when it's attained, it's only temporary? The real aim of life is spiritual perfection, because once we attain that, it's permanent. Try to understand the difference between material existence and spiritual existence. The material body is always imperfect. It comes into existence at a certain point, it exists for a definite period of time, and then it goes away, and it's finished. Everything in the material world is like that. Everything is temporary. So why should we work so hard for temporary benefits when everything in the spiritual world is permanent? It's eternal. Remember the Gita verse that I quoted. Those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent there is no endurance. In other words, if you see something that's temporary, it doesn't really exist. It's part of the illusion. And of the existent, there is no cessation. If something really exists, then it's going to be permanent. It's not going to be influenced by time. Now, is this just an article of faith? No. This, the seers have concluded by studying the nature of both. You can study the nature of both the temporary and the permanent right here in this life, in this body. The material body is temporary, changeable, and therefore ultimately non-existent. And the spirit soul, which is actually you yourself, is eternal, changeless, all-pervading, and indestructible. And Krishna concludes, no one is able to destroy the imperishable soul. Imperishable, that means you are immortal. You are that way already. There's nothing you have to do to become immortal, because that is your very nature. However, at the moment, by identifying with the material body, you have taken on attributes of a temporary object. And temporary objects do not really exist. Well, how can we say that doesn't really exist? It exists now, doesn't it? Well, yeah, sort of. But 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, 1,000,000 years from now? You see, just like a dream, when you wake up from a dream in the morning, it fades from your consciousness, and you say, oh, that was just a dream. Why? Because it didn't persist. It didn't endure. It did not survive the change of state of consciousness. So you say, oh, it was just a dream, it was just an illusion. No problem. Similarly, this material body does not survive the change in state of consciousness between what we call living and what we call death. Really, that change of state is simply the withdrawal of identification of the consciousness with the body. As soon as we thoroughly understand that the soul is different from the body, then we no longer have an interest in maintaining this body indefinitely. And so we stop struggling. We get out of this trap of being torn between desire and lamentation, love and hate, likes and dislikes. We stop fighting to attain temporary material pleasures that we cannot hold on to. We relax because we have found a new source of pleasure, a source of pleasure that is eternal and inexhaustible. And this is spiritual life, spiritual existence, spiritual consciousness. Once we attain spiritual consciousness, then that attainment can never be taken away from us by anything. Try to understand, everything which is spiritual is eternal, including the attainment of self-realization. So, as we come to understand the science of consciousness, we realize that the benefits obtained by cultivation of this science are indestructible, just like the soul. So, we're all conscious beings, and we are immortal, eternal, whether we want to be or not. We have to deal with it. We have to deal with reality. And the reality is, this consciousness is going to go on after the end of this body. Well, then what? Then we have to deal with the karma that we've created by our activities while in this body. You remember I said all of our enjoyment and suffering in this life is preordained. How? Through the law of karma. So the law of karma is the result of our previous activities. Well, what previous activities? Why is a person born in a particular situation? Some people are born in a rich family, some people are born in a poor family, some people are born with very good health, naturally. Other people are born crippled or otherwise deformed or something like that. Why? Well, these are the actions of the law of karma based on the activities of their previous life or lives. So because of their activities in previous lives, one gets a birth of a particular type in this life. And all the enjoyment and suffering in this life is already determined. That's how come astrology is so workable. Because the birth signs indicate what is that individual's karma. So now our activities in this life will form the cause of the birth in the next life. See how that works? Cause and effect. So what we do in this life is going to affect us in the next life, just as what we did in a previous life affects us in this life. Therefore, our activities should be oriented towards attaining a permanent solution to the problems of existence. Doesn't that make sense? Rather than focusing on the attainment of temporary pleasures that are only going to create karma that we have to answer for in the future, why don't we concentrate on the attainment of spiritual advancement that we can enjoy eternally? Because the pleasures of this body are going to go away. They're going to be taken away by time. That's inevitable. But the pleasures of the spiritual body, the real, perfect body, are eternal. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of My Perfect Body. This is David Hughes, your host, reminding you to visit us on the web at esotericteaching.org.